Welcome everybody to the Thursday Night Keystone Big Book Workshop. I am Rob K, recovered alcoholic. Sobriety date October 11, 2013. This workshop is facilitated by Tony.R and Katie J, who will keep everybody muted during the workshop except for the facilitator. Please note that we'll be taking questions after the meeting, so please write them down so you don't forget. Any inappropriate conduct will not be tolerated and you will be removed by one of the co-hosts. How we start this meeting is with the third step prayer. It's on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, and I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, a victory over them, may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. And I do thy will always. Tony, take it away, sir. Don't forget to unmute.
I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. Thanks, Rob. That was awesome. Evening, everybody. Sobriety Day is April 8, 1989. I thought there'd be way more people here thinking we were going to be talking about sex tonight, right? So I should have told them we had maybe a video or something. We would have got a lot more people. Anyways, that's where we're at. We're going through the series. If we kind of look at how it works on page 59.
Maybe they thought it was your sex video that they were tuning into. That's why they didn't show up.
Okay, can you mute her?
That's why nobody's here.
That's it. But I told them it was yours.
Oh, well, then there'd be hundreds.
Yeah.
And that's been erased.
Let's work on that ego here. Okay. Are you done? Can I continue?
Yeah, you can go now.
Okay, thank you. So let's look at page 59 here. I'm gonna beat her up later. Okay, so we've been doing a review here on basically every week a kind of summary of each kind of step. We looked at 1, we looked at 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're continuing through 4. And where we're at now in the series is we're looking at the sex inventory, which is kind of interesting. A lot of people have a lot of different ideas on it, but not a lot of people has actually done the process as outlined in the book. How do I know that? Well, because I've worked with thousands of people over the last 32 years, almost 33 years now since I've gone through this process with a group of people like this, back privately in the home. And I was like 16 years sober, or maybe 15 years sober, when I seen what the book was talking about. And I thought it was interesting that nobody was doing what the book was suggesting. Right. And I kind of went and I said, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen? And a lot of people are going, I seen it, but I didn't pay attention to it. I seen it, but I didn't understand what they were talking about. I seen it, but I just kind of read past it. Anybody read the book like that? Kind of read past things? And then somebody will go, hey, did you see this? Or did you notice this? Or did you see this sequence or how the book's designed? And a lot of people go, wow, I didn't know that, right? So I found it really interesting the way the book's laid out, right? And kind of like when we went through this, how many people has been following along this process? So it's kind of interesting when we go through it that when we did the resentments on the sheets, I don't have a set on me here. They're in my other book on my binder. So when we went through the sheets, that the resentment column, it started with the resentments. Oh, here they are. I was traveling at work. How many people got their worksheets with them? So it's kind of interesting how they do this is because when they kind of write this thing out, a lot of people miss this. It's so subtle how it's done that a lot of people would miss the idea of it. But the inventory process switches on how we look at it, right? So when we looked at our resentments and we put them on paper, we noticed we started with the people with whom we were resentful at. Remember column 1? And then we looked at column 2, what did they do? And then we looked at column 3, being our instincts, right? What part was affected? And then our response to that in column 4, and what we could have done instead, right? How many people kind of picked up on that? Then it asked us to look from, so we did that from left to right. And then it asked us to look at it from a entirely different view, which would be from right to left. And we see how these things set the ball rolling. It was my selfishness, dishonesty, self-seeking, and being frightened and inconsiderate that caused these problems based on one of my instincts to try to create security. How many people found that very surprising? So we realized it doesn't matter what person it was. If these people did the same thing, we'd just be equally mad at them or pissed off or offended or angry, right? And then when it talked about on 67 of these people that we had a resentment against, it talked about even though we did not like their symptoms, right? Remember that part? Or should we turn there really fast here? So even though we did not like their symptoms, right? So if you look at the top of 67, if you want to read that, Katie, you back with us? You okay now? You grounded? You all right?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Okay.
Top of 67. My name's Katie. I'm an alcoholic. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too.
Okay, so wait a minute. They like ourselves. So what are they saying here? Oh, they're all alcoholics? No, they're saying they, like ourselves, are suffering from the human dilemma, right? And based on their problems they're having with self or life, right? They've made decisions based on self that placed other people in a position to be hurt. Like the people around us, we place them in a position to be hurt. Why? Because we're making decisions based on self to try to create security, ambitions, right? So it's interesting that we start to see, so when we see what their lives were like, it starts to make sense why they did the things that they did, and it wasn't personal, right? And what I mean by personal is anybody in that situation would have the same response. My dog's knocking everything off the table so he gets some attention. Sorry, I'm trying to. He nearly took my pop and knocked it off there. He started moving it. He says, "Pay attention to me." So one of his instincts, his security instincts, being a little out of whack, he's involving me by trying to knock my pop off there to get a reaction from me, and thus setting the ball rolling. Anyway, that's another joke. So we see that they, like ourselves, were sick too. So now when we kind of go with this thing and we start looking at the sex inventory, it will be very helpful here. And I was going with the sheets here. So we went from the resentment. So we see the fourth column is what sets the ball rolling. So then when we look at the fears, which is really interesting, we start seeing where the fear is, right? We have this fear, and then right away, there's no cause. We see it's based on one of our instincts, either my self-esteem, my personal relationships. We see where it derives from. And the fear is a symptom of one of these threats to one of these basic instincts or my ambitions or security, right? So how many people found that interesting?
Yep.
Right? So we get rid of the whole column there. And then it says, well, why do I have this fear? Is it because I'm self-reliant or God-reliant? And so it gives us a whole new spin how we look at our lives, right? We start seeing most of our problems is created by self because we're self-reliant, right? And the more the more we try to have our way, the worse matters got. Anybody here? And when fear made us cocky, it was even worse.
Yep.
Right? And so we all got great hindsight. Anybody here? We're the smartest people in the world in hindsight. But what we're trying to develop is foresight. Before the accident, not after the accident, the pause. So when we went through this, we found it very interesting that we're starting to develop certain ideas and certain practices as we go through the 4. How many people find that interesting? And those of us who've been through this, we see the 4 is actually the foundation for step 11. So how well you understand the application of step 4, you'll be able to develop that in 11. And so so on your piece of paper that you have, we'll see that the inventory process is broken up into 4 sections, right? The first section, or the first purpose, yes, is to be rid ourselves of the blocks that block us off, right? So we see the resentments is what causes us to be ill, right? And we see what causes these other people to be ill is resentments. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. So their resentments, their pain, their hurts cause them to continue that chain. Most people call it the chain. They pass that down, right? So they pass it on to the kids, like a lot of our hurts passed down from our parents. Anybody? And then we continue going to, so the stuff that we said we'd never do, how many people's made amends for those stuff, right? So you can't change what you can't change. So we see that, right? So they talk about here, what is the purpose of the first section of the resentments? What's the purpose of it? Anybody want a hint? Just put your hand up. Well, if you kind of look at, if we look at page 66, it tells us the purpose. And this is the transition in our thinking that we need to cultivate or continue to kind of nurture for the rest of our lives. We need this, the ability to look at things differently, right? Because if we look at things the same, will we ever change? Or we'll be willing to change, or we'll look for a solution to change. So let's just hit that up here. It's page 66, last paragraph. Katie?
This was our course?
Yeah. No, we turn back to the list.
Okay, second to last paragraph. We
Yeah.
turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. We're prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle.
Which would give us a second view on it, or second opinion, or second, right? Second story, right? We have our story. Now we're trying to develop a new story. Would we kind of agree with that? Because to stick with the same story, we'll stay stuck,
Totally.
right? Okay. Okay, go
We're
ahead.
prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill.
Okay, so period, had the power to kill. And so where's this dominance happening? Where's this hostage taking happening? So we see this reiterates what they talked about in the 3rd step prayer. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Take away my difficulties. Most of us thought those things were outside of ourselves before we started this process, right? Take away this person, take away that person. Let me win the lottery. Let me, like, all external stuff. If once these external things are fixed, then I'll be happy. How many people had that idea going into this thing, that most of our problems were people, places, and things?
Yeah.
Right. So that's where people say, I'm powerless over people, places. Well, the book says, well, you're kind of not anymore. And we create our own reality based on our own thinking. So we need to narrate the story. So it says, had to actually kill. So who's killing ourselves? Who's poisoning ourselves?
We are.
Yeah, doesn't that give you a warm, fuzzy feeling? Right? So then, what's that question?
How could we escape?
So there's a question mark. Remember when we read the book and it has a question mark, right? Who's going to answer that? Is that where we stop and consult each other for direction on what to do here? Oh, there's a question mark. That means close the book. Let me think. Is that what the question mark means? It's asking you to answer it?
Nope.
So we understand that anytime the book has a question mark, who's going to answer the question?
They are.
There, doesn't that give you a bit of relief?
Yep.
Right? Okay. Well, what do they say?
How
How
could
do we
we escape?
escape?
We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how?
Okay, so we see that these resentment must be
Mastered,
mastered. So what's the purpose of the recipe?
master
And the-
resentments.
yeah, and right, to look at it from a different angle and to master resentments.
Mhm.
How can we escape? How do we apply this solution to have a different story, a different emotional response to the things that are happening inside of me? Because that isn't that most of it? Most of it, because we've seen that the resentments have all this emotional attachment to it. How many people, or a story, how many people need not explained? Right? So it's nice to get to a point. Wouldn't it be nice to get to a point that some of these things that we think of where there's no more emotional attachment to it? How many people, yeah, wouldn't that be the goal?
Totally.
Right? And then it gets to a place where you can see how that could, your experience with those things could benefit others. Wow, that these things that used to cripple you actually become a tool to help other people. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. Before doing the 4th step, you kind of go, that sounds crazy. Right? I don't ever see, I can't see that happening. That's right. You can't see it happening because you don't have this recipe.
Mhm.
Right? Because all you have is your story. It's like that Band-Aid stage. I'm stuck on Band-Aids and Band-Aids stuck on me. It's like I'm stuck on resentments and resentments stuck on me. Right? It's like going through a paint shop. You're going to get shit on you, right? Well, this here kind of gives you how to navigate through that. How can we escape, right? Okay, go ahead.
We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol.
So that means acceptance is not the answer to all your problems.
No.
That's like wishing them away. Oh, I accept it. Bullshit. You're full of shit. Okay, let's call it. Okay, because if acceptance was the answer to all your problems, then you wouldn't be talking about the same problem again, wouldn't you? Well, I thought that was your problem last week. Yeah, did you say acceptance? Well, why are you talking about it again? Well, I'm kind of struggling with acceptance, but of course you are, because we need a recipe to be free of these things. We bury things. Any barriers here?
Mhm.
And hope it goes away, but it just gets moldy. You ever leave something in the fridge and there's some drawers you open up and it turns into a science project? It's like, holy shit. Come on, how many people? And if you leave, and then like some of that stuff, the fridge has been unplugged for a while. And you know what? You ever been by a fridge with something that's been unplugged there for a while? Everybody knows, right? Everybody knows. Anybody?
Yeah.
When we're resentful, everybody knows. You ever watch a crazy person inside a car? You're glad they're contained, aren't you? They got more phlegm on the inside of the window than there's mist on the other side. You ever see these people? They're on the way to a meeting to share how much serenity they have. I don't know what that was. How many people have been crazy alone? Crazy.
Oh yeah.
You can't handle the level of energy that's happening. And then it starts coming out of your mouth and you're alone. How many people have been losing their shit alone? Because you just can't. And then people walking by your room or think, who's with you? And then they see you're alone. Anybody?
Yeah.
Anybody lose their shit alone?
Oh yeah.
My wife laughed. I lost them every once in a while. I just lose my shit, right? It's been a long time. And I grabbed the toaster. I don't know what I did. And I started smashing the toaster. And I think I was alone in the kitchen. And I came into the kitchen and I sat down. I was eating my toast. She goes, everything okay? I said, yeah, I'm okay now. But the toaster, not too good. She goes, oh, Tony showed up. I said, yeah. We had a moment in the kitchen, but there was a hostile takeover, but now I'm bringing God into it, right? Anybody? Come on, I'm not alone in that.
Oh yeah.
I'm not alone in that, right? So how can we escape? Because the more we try to combat ourselves, the worse matters get. Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
So how do I bring God into this, right? How do I change that hostile takeover? I used to call it, there's been a hostile take. I need to bring the UN in, the peacekeepers. That's God. I need to create a division within inside of myself, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, my mind's a bad neighborhood. Don't go in there unsupervised. Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it's created. So how can we escape, right? So then they tell us how to do that, and we did that. So who's it up to practice this recipe to get relief, to change the story? Us. And we see the more we work for it, that's what the promises talk about. They'll always materialize if we work for them. What's the work? Is the correction in our thinking and the invitation or the access of power through prayer that creates a shift that we can have a different experience. How many people have found that to be true doing this recipe?
Definitely.
How many people tried to do that without the recipe? Yeah. Is there a difference?
Yep.
That's what being convinced. We don't need to tell you that there's a difference. You'll find out. Right? Like, I have a friend that says, we don't care if you don't believe. Stick around. You'll be contacted shortly. Right? So I love that. Okay, so then we got the resentment. So then we get into the fears. And we go through that, which is interesting. And then it goes right into the instincts. You see where it arrives from. And we see what an instinct-based life looks like. It's fear-based. And then once you finish the resentment part, which is interesting, you see actually fear precedes resentment. So what happens first is the fear, and then it creates the resentment. Well, why didn't it start off with fear first and then resentment? Because we wouldn't be able to see the fear, because we're poisoning ourselves with resentments. Interesting. So they're shifting, the columns are moving. Anybody notice that? They're becoming less columns now. There's the symptom, what the fear is, whatever it is, police, relationship, and then where it comes from, the instinct. Now, here comes the good part. You're going to like this. When we go to the sex inventory, you'll see we removed all the columns. And it starts off with column 1, which used to be column 3. And then it moved to column 2. And now it's column 1. Right? And it's the symptoms that cause the problem. Well, what's the symptom? The selfishness, the dishonesty, the selfish, inconsiderate, right? And self-seeking. Well, what's that based on? That's a symptom of my instincts. It's not the problem. Whoa, how many people find that interesting? So if I work on the symptoms, does that take care of the problem?
Nope.
Right? So it's kind of, So the symptoms make you aware of an underlying problem. And then when we go through this part of the inventory, it's a shift in how we think. So when I'm being selfish, inconsiderate, and frightened or dishonest, I realize there's something happening with my instincts. That's right. So anybody ever have a toothache here?
Yeah.
So the pain lets you know that there's something else happening. The pain is just the symptom. It's not the problem. It's an indicator that there's something underlying happening. Then after a while, the pain goes away. It doesn't mean the problem's going away. Then it starts turning into an abscess. Anybody know people or been there or have that? You think, oh, because you've eaten through the nerve. It stopped hurting, but the tooth is still decaying. And that's like most of us. We've become numb to what's happening at a subconscious level, right? But it's still creating discomfort and kind of confusion, but the kind of the pain's been removed. And then we have moments of realization. Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
So what creates change in our life is not yesterday's pain, because most of us can stay ahead of that. Anybody? It's the pain that we live in today that we can't escape. When you can't escape that anymore, now we have a problem. So that what that used to mean is the pain, when the pain of your existence becomes greater than the pain you're running from, then you have to find a solution for that. Because how many people would actually be seeking a solution if you could stay ahead of yourself?
No.
There's nothing left. There's not like there was just you, and you. Sickening, wasn't it? Sorry. Being convinced that you left with you is not a good combination, is it? And you don't need a seconder for that one. When you get to that stage where you look in the mirror and go, oh yeah. Oh yeah. And when you start seeing what everybody else starts seeing, it's not funny anymore, is it?
No.
Huh? You used to think what everybody else's problem was, but when you start seeing what everybody else sees, then it's kind of like, then you go to your spouse, I'm not feeling good. You shouldn't be feeling good. You ever hear people say, they never finish this comment. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. There's more to that comment, but nobody says it. Anybody want to know what the rest of that comment's supposed to be? You're exactly where you're supposed to be based on the shit you've been doing. Where else you think you would be?
Yeah.
Look at the life. I don't feel good. Of course not. Look at the shit you've been doing. If you felt good, would you seek steps or help? If your life was going fantastic, would you seek help?
No.
So now we're getting into the best part of the inventory process without people realizing it, because most people think the sex inventory is about sex. They don't realize it's actually about relationships, right? And there's a recipe in that in regards to all my relationships, not just my intimate ones with my partner or perceived partner or people, or you could say places and things, whatever you're into. Right, there's
all inclusive these days.
All inclusive. Don't want to leave nobody behind. Okay, no joke intended. Okay, so okay, so now about sex.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. So let's see what it says. So everybody got a pen and highlighter? Let's see what it says, not what we were taught. Because most of us, when we think about a sex inventory, how many people think about the nasty, dirty things? That's not what it's like when we thought of the inventory. How many people used to think, and then when we went through it, we went, oh, well, isn't this pretty awesome? When you actually do the 4-step the way the 4 steps laid out, it's a pretty awesome exercise. But when you do it with people that don't understand it or haven't done it, it's a very painful exercise. Mm-hmm. Right? Because when you are going through this unsupervised, that means without this power, it's a painful process.
Yep.
Because the point of the process is for you to start having an experience of your own with this power, how it could create a shift within you sufficient enough that you find relief through prayer and application. How many people found that to be cool? But that's not what we got taught the 4 steps about, is it? But that's exactly what it's about. How many people finding that out, right? So before we finish, so what's the part about the fear? What was the point of it before we get into this part, which will add to what we're learning here? So we've been learning some things without realizing it, right? We've been learning a recipe. We've been learning how to meditate. We've been learning how to step back and have a look at our lives. We've been learning how to detach from our thinking to have a different view of it. Like I don't know how else to say it. It's like placing it in front of you and sorting through it without attachment, right? We're starting to see that we're not our thinking. How many people found that to be really cool?
Very cool.
And that we have the ability to re-narrate the story, or the narrator through prayer. We can change what's happening inside of us. How many people find that real cool? Right? So a lot of people miss this, and this is the last part on the fear, and then we'll get into the sex part again, right? So we're still doing dinner. Okay, so what they're talking about here, some people caught that joke. Okay, so what is the last part? We'll go with, we never apologize for God. Never means never.
It says, we never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do.
So this is pretty
We
cool. So we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. So that means we're accessing this power. And this kind of goes along with what they talked about on page 54 and 55. Is this shifting in our belief system that creates did not the fabric of our existence was shot through it. They talk about, did not these feelings after all determine the outcome of our lives or our reality? So we see how we think, how we feel, and how we process life is this, we're some result of that. Anybody? And when you look back, we see when you're making decisions based on these kind of things, your life looks the way it does. In order for it to change, our belief system, how we're responding, all that needs to change at a core level, based along spiritual lines, not based on instinct-based living. So we're starting to see that shift, right? And they talk about that shift from page 62 to 63. And on 63, they talk about, as we felt new power flow in. Anybody remember that part? Right? Was their experience going through this process. So we should hopefully start to be experiencing that through applying this. Because what we're starting to apply prayer to what? To these things inside of us that cause us difficulties. Right? We're starting to apply prayer here. And here's the recipe that we learned. What's the recipe?
We let him demonstrate through us what he can do. We ask him to remove our fear.
So let's break it down. Okay, let's break it down. We ask him to remove our fear. In order to ask for something to happen, first you have to acknowledge it's there, right? So we see that we acknowledge. How do we acknowledge this thing is there? Because it's a shift in our thinking and our energy. How many people experience some form of fear and anxiety this week? Overthinking. Is that not a cause of fear based on one of our instincts? How many people paused or continue to think?
A little bit of both.
So you hear a lot of people say, oh, I have a anxiety disorder. No, you have a thinking disorder.
Yeah.
Right? So when you kind of realize, oh my God, when I really think about this, I get a tightness in my chest. I have an anxiety. I'm not breathing, because what you're creating is the fight or flight instinct within your body. Don't know it's not in trouble because your mind's created a scenario that your endorphins are getting ready to, and what you're doing is sitting there and you're like, why am I so intense? Why am I so on the alarm or the ready? Anybody ever see the newcomers meeting? The people are nuts. So I sit down, relax, no, something might be happening. Like they're nuts. They're not even there. Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Looking where the exit is, looking who's going to cause problems. Like everybody's looking for everything, but no one's paying attention unless you get asked to speak. Then I'm paying attention now. But you see what happens when you're sitting in a peaceful situation. How many people feel that anxiety and the story? How many people?
Oh, yeah.
Who's creating that?
Me.
So the pause is like, whoa, look what's happening here. Let me step back from that. And the shift is what? The prayer. When you shift, you're creating a different energy. It's like you're putting a clutch in. Anybody ever drive those cars? Was the standards, right? When the gears, like the engine takes off, what do you push in the clutch? And it's not connected to the drivetrain anymore. That's what the first part is. And then you take corrective measures to take the foot off the gas pedal. Anybody? And that's kind of like what we're doing to create a different shift here. And then you focus on what you should be doing or how the car should be operating, right? You take corrective measures to correct the car to continue safely. Does that kind of make sense? If you do the same thing with your thinking, how will your life start looking?
Better.
In each moment. Imagine if you corrected each moment. So instead of spending 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, or a day in this thought or these ideas or these anxiety-based living, and you corrected it and started applying this prayer, what's the rest of it? Ask him to remove our fear and what?
Direct our attention to what he would have us be.
And what be where? Where? To play the role he assigns when? Now. Now. So we get that part of now. I can be present now. Well, what am I supposed to be doing now? I'm supposed to be participating in this group, right? Going through this thing. Took me a couple minutes because I just got here through traffic to get caught up to get the flow happening. I feel the shift happen inside of me because I was instinct-based driving on high alert, instinct-based, everything going, trying to talk to God, listening to Joel Osteen, trying to get balanced. Pretty hard to do when you're driving in rush hour and people are like, anybody picking up what I'm putting down?
Yep.
And I get in the house and I'm still like, I gotta go put on a meeting. Right. And as I'm doing this, talking to Katie, I'm trying to get here and I just feel myself, my shoulders are down. I feel more relaxed. The tension's gone. And it just didn't take too long, right? It didn't take too long till I started feeling that shift, which is pretty cool, right? And that's what the fear part's about. Okay, go ahead.
We ask him
At
to
once.
okay.
Yep.
At once we commence to outgrow fear.
Outgrow something. Does that mean it's no longer present?
You outgrew it. You're past it.
It's still there, but I have the ability to overstep it, to move past it. A lot of people say you can't have two of them of fear and faith don't live in the same house. Anybody ever hear that stuff?
Yeah.
Can't have two. Well, listen, you know what? Let's stop the bullshit, okay? Like, let's get real, right? Let's get real for a minute. There's a lot of things that cripple us through life. Anybody? A lot of things. What I'm praying for is the ability to stand up and face the day. The ability just to get out of bed sometimes through life. The ability to set the alarm clock and set the day, or go face people, or go face things I don't want to do. God, give me the strength to do that. And that's more in 11 stuff, but that's what they're talking. I'll grow. Answer the phone when it's call display. Right? Anybody? Yeah, some of you are picking up what I'm putting down, right? Go to work, be of service, be of help. How do I do these things? When I don't want to get up out of bed, or I don't want to get up out of my chair, go to a meeting, be of service. I don't want to leave. I just want to lie here on the couch. I'm the only one here. How many people talk themselves out of happiness? Right? I'm going to sit in front of the TV, feel like shit instead of going to a meeting and being of help. I'm probably the only one, right? I go to the meeting half an hour early. I don't want to go to see those sons of a bitches. I don't like any of them. I was going to use other language that I use in my head. I'm probably the only one here, right? Go help. Show up half an hour early. I meet somebody that's praying to get where I'm complaining about. And I spend a little time with them and I kind of go, wow, thank you, God, right? And then I help put some chairs away and I get some phone numbers and I go, wow, what an awesome night. What a difference, right? Outgrow and just that ability. So the next time I have a problem, I'm going a little earlier. I have to do this. I do this twice a week. You know how you got to keep yourself in check? Over the last 32 years, I've been doing this twice a week, sometimes 3 nights a week. You got to get yourself in check to be of service. How many times you think fear would cripple me? I don't want to go do that. I don't want to be a part of that. And then a little voice would be in my head and said, imagine if the guy who helped save your life said that. Where would you be? Imagine if those people that went and put on the coffee, went and turned on the lights, or turned up at that Zoom meeting 15 minutes early to make sure it was on. Imagine if they didn't do that. Where would you be? And I think of all those people that made the effort, that whatever they were going through to make the difference in my life. What's my responsibility? To do the same thing. And what do? I benefit from it. How many people have the same story here?
Yep.
Seems to work. But without prayer, I don't get the access or the strength to do it. Right? Because I'm doing things that I don't want to do. Anybody in this group? And not doing things that I want to do. What's the difference? Is prayer. Does anybody understand how prayer works? Yeah. Okay. But how many people experience the benefits of prayer? So it's one of those things, they call it a phenomenon. It doesn't make any sense, but it's okay. It's like back when the guy said, here, try this acid. What, that little thing? It doesn't make sense. Here, try a drink. It's phenomenal. That doesn't make sense. Right? Here, go to work, get a job, earn a paycheck. That don't make sense. I mean, do the steps, you'll feel better. That don't make sense. Okay, so let's get into what we're hoping to get into. Go ahead.
Now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there. But above all, we tried to be sensible on this question.
Okay, underline that. Be sensible. Right? And an overhauling means a whole different look at things. Notice it didn't say a self-administered beating and shame, guilt, and remorse. You notice it didn't start that way? Some of you people are really heathens. Like, like you say, right? It's kind of a gentle kind of, let's go. We all got some problems here, people. Okay, go ahead.
It's so easy to get way off the track.
True?
Yeah.
You ever been to a meeting, people giving advice on shit they shouldn't be giving advice about? Okay.
Here we find human opinions running to extremes.
Yeah, anybody been to those meetings? No relationships for the first year, no this, no that, everybody, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What an order, I can't go through with it. I said, the only requirement for membership is a desire not to have any relations, any human contact, or anything. You can't even touch yourself in the first year. Never mind anybody else. It's like, what? That's what you kind of hear, right? Naughty boy, right? So it's kind of like, what the hell? I don't know if I like this AA, right? You got to remember how we hear things, okay? Because how I hear things and how you're saying things are two different things. And a lot of stuff I heard at meetings, I said, I don't know if I like this sobriety thing too much. Anybody? Bro, okay. Just getting a little too real there. Okay.
Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes, perhaps.
Absurd. Underline that. That's where you can tell these old timers go, what? Said pardon? Okay, absurd. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. That really freaked them out, wouldn't it, eh? No relationships for the first year. That's crazy. My sponsor said, the best thing you do is get in some relationship, but be honest. I said, why is that? He says, oh, you'll find out. Got talking to my sponsor, got praying, got in service work. Oh, it got painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 injured people trying to fix each other. Anyhow.
What is Don? Two dinglings don't make a bell.
Yeah.
All right. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow a man no flavor for his flair, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. So
they're saying all of us fit somewhere in this line of thinking, based on culture, belief system, where you're raised, your demographic background, but on all that stuff, your experience, somewhere along the line, you have some thinking that causes you problem in this area or your view on other people. Right? Anybody? Sometimes there's our view on our lives, and then there's our view on other people's conduct that causes us problems in regards to them. Anybody?
Yep.
Right? Okay.
We want to stay out of this controversy.
Whoa. What do you mean we want to stay out of this controversy? I thought we had opinions about that in every meeting we went to about relationships, sex, people, and how people should conduct themselves. We want to stay out of it. You know what that's saying? Mind your own business.
Yep.
But it didn't say to ignore conduct that was unbecoming of an AA member. That's why we have the yellow card now. And it's about being safe, right? Like, you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong. And this is not just men. I'm talking women too, right? Like we're talking, like it's like people are equal opportunists because AA can be like a bar without the booze sometimes. No?
Yeah.
Get too real here? Right. And so what happens is so sometimes we've got to keep each other safe. That's why they say women hang with women, men hang with men, right? And so what happens when you go to those, if you're in a group that's designed for, I don't know, is it even appropriate to say gay anymore if you go to gay groups? I don't even know. Okay, whatever. So what happens in those? So we're talking about human conduct. When human conduct's unbecoming to other people or causes other people to be placed in a position to be hurt, I think it's okay to tell people, hey, you know what? Be careful. Tell them the truth. This is like a bar. We still have the human condition here. We still have people that are not well. We still have it. So be aware, be honest. And you're not stupid. Like, you know, the life we come from, we know, most of us know what we're doing. Oh, I didn't know what I was doing. You know what you were doing. You didn't get your own way, so now you're crawling foul. Come on. Anybody? Too real? Well, maybe we should go through this, right? And some of us, so in our group, we called it out. We watched over people. It's like, you know, give people a chance, right? We know who the predators were. And it's the same thing in bars. Why is it different? Same thing in life, anywhere you go. Men, women, all the same, right? But give each other a chance, right? Okay, go ahead. I don't know why I went there. Go ahead.
We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't.
Yeah, we all do. And this is the person that gets into too many relationships. This is the person that don't get into any relationships. This is the person that don't know how to have a relationship. This is a person, like, we're just, some of us are not right. Anybody?
Yeah.
So they're saying, okay, now let's look all this, like what we're gonna look at. Well, so we all have problems. So what are we gonna do with it now? I don't even know I have a problem. Sometimes before I did this, right? I didn't know I had a problem until I went through this inventory and I said, holy shit, what I thought was a problem wasn't a problem at all. It was an instinct that was out of whack, that it was disguising itself, which is really interesting. So I worked toward the correction of that through prayer and meditation, and that took care of the problem that I thought I had. But I had to go through the inventory process to find out what that was, to correct this problem, right? So what's the problem? Well, let's find out what your problem is. Each individually may be differently, but it's all based on the same thing. Okay, go ahead.
We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them?
Well, that's the question. Whose question is that now? There's a question mark there. Who's going to answer that?
Not
Is this
you.
where you stop and say, well, what can I do about this?
No.
No, we already seen what you did about it. That's why you're doing an inventory.
Yeah.
Right? If your way was working, we look forward to hearing your book. But obviously it's not working too well. You're reading our book. So let's find out what our book says about the problems that we have in this area. Are we good with that?
Good with that. I always say if I wrote a book, it would be called, well, that didn't go as planned.
Yeah, you already wrote the book. It's your fourth step. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. We reviewed our own. Okay, here we go. We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where have we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate?
Isn't that interesting? We're starting off with the last column first. Where had we been selfish? Read that again slowly. Dishonest or inconsiderate. You notice now that how many people are starting to think of somebody they were selfish, inconsiderate, or dishonest with when you look back over your life. You couldn't start the inventory process with that problem. You had to go through the resentments, and it shifted to see, because then when you seen what the problem was, you go, And then when you did the fears, you kind of went, isn't this interesting, right? Right? It's based on, so now we see our conduct toward others. Where had we been selfish and considered dishonest? How many people thought about a situation, person, place, or thing? As we were talking about that. So we see our consciousness says, here's an example, here's an example, here's an example. How many people thought of something? It may be insignificant, but you did think of something in regards to where you're selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate in regards to your relationship in the past. Interesting. So this is the first list. So what's the first list? Is we look back, and this may sound kind of weird, but all I'm looking for is where I was selfish. What am I looking for? Where I was selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate. That's all I'm looking for. So that means when I pray, I do a third step prayer. Doesn't ask me to do that, but this is all about the connection of power and seeking and the ideas expressed there on this new relationship. So it would be suggested that I'd utilize that prayer for the moving through this thing. Then I ask myself, I got a piece of paper and a pen. Where was I selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? It doesn't even have to involve another person. Right? So people may sound that funny, but all I'd have to put down is magazines. Right? Roman Catholic background. So the magazines, when I was a kid, we found magazines, but you don't know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. So I just put magazines down, because it brought up some attachment to it, or the reel to reel. I understand what I'm talking about, right? Or Sarah, or the Greyhound bus, foster care. So I'm going down this list. Nobody knows what I'm talking. I know what I'm talking about because I know the story connected to that. The Ford car, right? The drive-in. Anybody know what I'm talking? I do, and I don't have to write out the story, but when I look at it, or I could go, Kim, yeah, or Sarah, Sam, right? I could put down, or things that I didn't want anybody to know, but may cause me guilt, shame, or remorse if anybody found it. I could put abbreviation there. If I put down the red cap, baseball cap, would anybody know what I'm talking about? I would know what I'm talking about and associate with. So when I did my fifth step, right, I would be able to get in more details about that. So I just make a list. And what that does is my subconscious will tell me everything. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. So, and it's kind of like the inventory on the resentments, even though it may sound kind of weird, but it's stuff that you're still carrying where there's some form of emotional attachment to it. It doesn't say it doesn't make sense. Is why is it coming back to the surface now? Because there's still something attached to it. Or it could have been some idea somebody else taught you was true, and you realize it doesn't sit well with me. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. Right? So it's kind of like, I mean, growing up, like through the church, the masturbation was something it was frowned upon. It was sin, right? And then it's kind of, so it'd be something you'd carry for a long, and so it's like you'd put it down, but it's something natural as a human being that you would go through, but you wouldn't know that if you're guilt, shame, and remorse around it, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the inventory process that you need to be honest about what's happening, because what you're going to do is kind of look at all these things, because these things are shaping your relationships or your non-relationships or how your relationships look without realizing it. right? These things are making the decisions in your relationships, right? Anybody have reoccurring situations that even though you're in a relationship with a new person, not even a relationship with a new person, you think of other people in regards to that person because they're going, this reminds me of that situation, that, so you're preparing yourself. I know what's going to happen here. I know what's happening here. They don't think I know what's going on here. I know what's going on. And the paranoia starts based on something that's on, you start checking phones and you start checking things, you start checking motives, you start creating the very thing that you're afraid of. You're creating the very relationship that you are trying to get away from. Why? Because your template hasn't changed. Or then you get to a place of, I know what relationships are like, so I'm not going to get in them. So we rob her either way. So this is kind of like, well, let's see what's going on inside. Let's be honest about that. Let me make that list. And so what do I do with that list? This is the interesting part. So when we got this sheet here, even though we got a name of people, places, and things on the other sheet here, and it could be the RIO. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I know what I'm talking about, right? So here, I look at the first name and say if it was Kim. So I put down what I'm looking for, where I was selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or inconsiderate. And I go, yeah, with these things, whom did I hurt? This is the interesting part, where before I would just think I just hurt her, right? But actually I hurt her, I hurt myself. So here, in the second column, I'm making a list of everybody that was affected by that situation. Her, myself, her sister, her mom, her brother, all these people that got involved. Isn't that interesting? Where I thought it was just one person, I didn't realize the neighbor, the people, all these people that got involved in this situation, sometimes the police. Anybody? That's only one situation. Sarah at my home group back then, right? Newcomer, got involved in the situation. I was selfish and considered dishonest, right? Because I hid my motives. I was saying, yeah, I wanted to get in a relationship when I didn't want to get in a relationship. I just wanted to get in, you know. I didn't want a relationship, but I didn't feel if I wasn't honest, I wouldn't have got any. So I disguised my motive. Nobody like that in here, right? Right. So who did I hurt? Well, I just said, oh yeah, I just hurt her, but I hurt myself and the people in my home group and their friends, because what happened, it started to interfere with my reputation. Why? Not because I had the relationship, is because I was dishonest. That was forthcoming with my motives, but I didn't know what my motives were because I didn't know that I didn't know. I thought I wanted a relationship. I didn't want a relationship at all, but I didn't know that because I never did an inventory. I really want the white picket fence in the house and all that other. I didn't want none of that, but I didn't know how to say that because I was distorted in my own thinking by my own values and my own truths. Anybody? Can't be the only one. Well, this guy doesn't want a relationship, but he'll change his mind.
I'll change him.
I'll change him, right? Anybody? Yeah. So, okay, I was feeling alone out in a boat by myself there for a while, right? I was starting to get some women looking at me, yeah, I know your type of guy. Hold on. Okay, let's back it up. Oh, yeah, well, okay. Well, okay. Remember, this is, I'm not running for any kind of politician or anything like that. It takes a little bit of vulnerability to put that out there, right? And there's to show you that we all have problems in one way or another, and we've all been. So all we're looking at in this one here is the situations. Notice it's not the acts, right? Well, I got into bondage with this person. So what? That's not what it's about. If you're okay with it and they're okay with it, that's between you two, right? But if it causes me some problems here, then I need to be honest about that. if I'm engaged in things that's causing dishonesty, inconsideration, selfishness, right? And it's hurting other people or hurting me, I need to be honest about that on this list, right? Because if I'm not honest about it, who's the one that ends up paying for it? Us. This seems like resentment, seem like the fears. This is the same area. So if I want a new experience, I need to be honest about what's going on.
Mhm.
And it didn't say good or bad. You notice that? You naughty person, or you terrible. It's not saying that. It's saying, do you want to be free of these things of the past so you have a new experience today and going forward? You want to be free of that stuff. Yeah, I want to be free of the stuff that I've been carrying. How do I know what I've been carrying? My conscience will tell me. Anybody have that happening for them as I'm talking? Things are coming to the surface. That's all it asks me to do is make a list. When I have the list, just go across here. Yeah, I was selfish, dishonest. In regards to that situation, who did I hurt regards to that situation? I hurt all these people. And that'll be it for this week. And then we'll get into that. That'll be a lot. Right? Just do the list, right?
Awesome.
And then kind of go across and be honest about it. Like just kind of, and when you get jammed in, what do? You do the prayer. It's not about beating myself up. It's to get a new idea and a new experience moving forward. And it's being free from the past. Remind ourselves what's the point of the exercise. It's to have a new relationship, a new experience with what? With this power and with God. To have a new freedom and new happiness. To not regret the past or wish to shut the door. To be free. To be, I'm okay with everything. And if you knew my past, and for me to sit here and say I'm okay with everything, everybody and everything, I don't carry nothing from anybody or anything, nothing, which is a pretty remarkable thing considering my past, right? What made that possible is God in this process. I'm free today, and that's available to anybody, right? So all those things that are reverent, I used to have that too, used to cripple me, not anymore. And that's, how did that all happen? Through something that didn't make any sense, but I did it. I learned the recipe and I keep on doing it. So may the force be with you, live long and prosperous, and we'll continue Tuesday. How many people are excited about this process? How many people say, oh my God, what did I get myself into? It's okay. We've all been there. Thanks.
Evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock Pacific time. It is 10 o'clock East Coast time, and it is 2 o'clock UK time. And to those that are here from the UK, thank you very much. Just want to welcome everybody to the Tuesday night Keystone Big Book meeting. I am Rob K, recovered alcoholic. This workshop is facilitated by Tony.R and Katie J. We will keep everybody muted during the meeting, except for the facilitators. Please note that we'll be taking questions after the meeting, so please write them down so you don't forget. Any inappropriate conduct will not be tolerated, and you'll be removed by one of the co-hosts. Have a great meeting, and how we open up this meeting is with the set-aside prayer, otherwise known as delay-aside prayer. So, dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, this book, my disease, these steps, and especially about you, dear God, so that I might have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me to see the truth. Tony, don't forget to unmute, and it's all yours, sir.
All right, I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. I'd like to welcome everybody. I'm just kind of getting set up here. Sobriety Day, April 8, 1989. I'd like to welcome anybody new or coming back to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're gonna get kind of started off here where we left off. And I'm gonna look at some sex inventory. How many people is excited about that? Well, we're looking at your own. How many people still excited about that? More excited about somebody else's inventory than our own, right? So how many people good at taking other people's inventory here?
Yep.
Yeah. How many people? Yeah. And we've seen that so far going through the inventory process, haven't we? How good we are at taking other people's inventory and how slow we are at taking our own. Even during the week when stuff's going on, how fast are we to point the finger? Nobody in this group, right?
What finger?
Yeah. See, I knew you'd go there, eh? That's Katie. In case anybody don't know, that's my protege. That's Katie. Still a lot of work. Lots of work. And Joe just took his 4-year cake. There's still lots of work. So anyhow, where we're at is kind of like I don't know. I think it may have been an accident where they say, page 69. I don't know. Just kind of like a coincidence, an accident. I don't even know if that was a thing back then, right? But I mean, it's sure funny when we look at it. How many people, when they looked at the 6 words, oh my God, it's on page 69. Had a giggle. Or am I the only one? Am I the only immature one here? Is there a couple here, right?
Right room.
My sponsor said, since we're doing sex inventory here, and it's kind of lighten up. You know what? You know what the fastest speed you can go having sex is? 68 miles an hour. After that, you got to turn around. That's okay. That's about how spiritual we're getting tonight, people. Everybody good? We're in the right room. How many people in the right room? How many people just said, "Oh my God"? Right? Anyways, we're funny, eh? You ever notice when we sober up, we start getting like a prude, like we're kind of like all of a sudden it's like, Anyways, we keep it real in this group. Like I said, can you believe like sobriety days, April 8, 1989, right? Could you imagine what I was like before I did this process? Don't worry about it. Yeah, some people went, wow. Yeah, I still go, wow. Anyhow, you got the worksheets. How many people got the worksheets?
Yeah.
I kind of looked at them. It's quite interesting, actually, the process when you kind of look at the development of the worksheets and how they're laid out and stuff like that, right? I know I have a set somewhere around here. And my wife told me to clean the office. I didn't do it, so she cleaned it for me. So guess what? Everything is in the garage. It's okay. It's okay. So, Katie, do you have the sheets with you?
I just ran to look for them. I have them on my phone though.
You have them on your phone, and then so when we go through the process, I'm pretty clear with the idea here. So we made a list, right? And what was the first list on page 69? They kind of, which is kind of interesting. How they set us up for this thing, right? They kind of went, well, we're going to look at this thing, and it's not about beating yourself up, right? How many people kind of got a bit of relief about that, right? It's not about shame, guilt, and remorse, right? It's not about seeing how nasty of a person or how bad of a person you are. That's not the idea of it, right? The idea is kind of like, and this is my take on it, it's kind of like we agnostics, right? It is to find something that works for you, right? That doesn't cause you guilt, shame, or remorse. Like a relationship, this is what the people around you. A lot of people think it's just the sex inventory, but later on, they kind of go, we treat this problem as we would anything else. It's about establishing relationships with people, places, and things, and the ideal partner, right? And a lot of us can't do that because we have a lot of the old shit still in the way. It's like when you're filled with resentments, right? How well of a relationship can you formulate with other people?
Can't.
You really can't, can you? But if you don't know that, then it's kind of like what are you? You're sure other people are more to blame. Anybody been there? But when we went through this process, it became a real eye-opener how we're really poisoning ourselves. Anybody seen that here?
Mm-hmm.
Just got kind of getting caught up back where my feet are here, just kind of getting everything in order here. Okay, so we kind of got to see that process. And then when we went through the fear process, we seen how governed we were by that. How many people were really surprised how much fear really governed their life?
Mm-hmm.
Because unless you kind of have that moment and you meditate and step back from your life and you kind of look at your thinking process along this template, it was a real eye-opener. because before I did this process, you ask me, I'm not afraid of nothing or nobody, right? And it's kind of, and they talked about when we're driven like that, when fear made us cocky, it was worse. Oh my, I seen that, how my fear caused me more problems because I ignored it or tried to override it or show the world I wasn't afraid. Nobody in this group, right? And we see it and we ruin a lot of relationships on fear. Anybody? And we see that in or we don't get into them because of fear. So we see it's an evil and corroding thread, right? That right set in motion trains of circumstances that brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. Anybody there? Then we seen how these things rise out of ourselves, but it really had to face these things. It was a fact-finding, fact-facing process, right? And until I did this process, I never seen these things. Am I alone? Anybody else like that here?
Yeah.
I've done other methods where my fear was based on blaming of other people, places, and things. This happened because I was 8 years old. This happened because, and I still carry it. No, fear only happens when? Today in the now. I can only, and then what my brain and my instincts or my emotions don't know the difference. You ever notice that?
Mhm.
Anybody think of a fear and you think it's actually happening, your body gets ready for fight or flight?
Yep.
So it's interesting. So how you could relive something day in and day out for years, creating an anxiety-based living. Nobody like that here, right? So what happens is we start thinking, oh, I have an anxiety disorder. You hear that a lot. I'm hearing that more now than I ever did in our fellowship. How many people hear that now? Everybody's getting diagnosed with an anxiety disorder.
Mhm.
Well, what we call that going through the process is a thinking disorder, right? If you have a thinking disorder, how are you going to feel? Pretty crazy, right? So that's why the books are, when the spiritual malady is straightened out, we straighten out what? Mentally and emotionally. So if the spiritual malady, is that connected to the human problem or alcoholism? How many people got their pen and paper?
Yep.
So is the spiritual malady, right, as a result of alcoholism or my human condition? How many people, wait a minute. How many people said human condition? And that's what the book says, right? Why shouldn't we apply the same readiness to change or apply to our human problems, the same readiness to change, right? Apply to this condition. What did we used to apply to our human condition to seek relief?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. So some people say, oh, I was an alcoholic before I drank. No, you may have had problems before you drank. Alcohol may have been a solution for some people, but a lot of people are able to stop or modify their drinking. But the alcoholic, with hardly an exception, can do that. Why? Because of the allergy and the malady that centers in the brain. So you notice we don't treat alcoholism here. We have a treatment for it. Is that two different things? You hear a lot of people say, I'm treating my alcoholism. How? In step one, you admitted you were powerless over it. If you're powerless over it, how do you treat it? It's like treating diarrhea. How do you do that? Right? You can't really do it. You need to find a solution for it, right? And it's Imodium, and you can have the Imodium sitting in your cupboard. It does you no good there, right? He's like, oh, I think about the solution every day. Have you applied it yet? No. That's why things are shitty. Right? And that's kind of like our lives, right? I think about a solution. I know there's a solution. Well, have you applied it? No, I'm still talking about it. I'm still going to step meetings and talking about something I haven't done yet. Well, what are you talking about? I'm talking about that last share I heard that was really good. That's now my share at the next meeting. I formulated my talk based on everybody else's experience. Anybody like that here?
Mm.
But you don't know that because we're chameleons. We don't like to be found out, do we? we go in, we look around, and we adapt, we fit in. We, no matter where we are, anybody go to places undetected for periods of time, and then they detect you and it's too late. Well, time for a new bar.
Yep.
Time for new friends, time to move, time to get time. Anybody got that kind of stuff going on? And then you recreate the very thing that you're trying to get. How many people have recreated the same life over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Right? Because we're using the same template. So follow me here. So what they're saying here is, if we're going to attract and have new relationships, how many people look forward to having the old relationships continue in our life?
No.
So we're really hoping on a new experience, right? Even if you've been sober a while, it's about developing. In my early sobriety, a lot of relationships started out really good. Anybody here? And turned out really bad. Because it was the same template I was using to formulate and attract certain people, right? I was attracted to certain people based on certain things. So in this process here, what we're trying to do is get a new attitude in regards to different things. So let's look at page 69. And on it, it says, we reviewed our own conduct over the past years. Everybody see that? Page 69?
Yep. My name's Katie. I'm an alcoholic. We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. In this way,
So this is the interesting part. We got this all done on paper and we looked at it. Well, what are we looking for, right? It says, well, were we at fault? What should we have done instead? So we kind of people ask that, well, what could I have done then? Well, I couldn't have done anything then. That's how I acted then. But now, what should I have done instead in that situation? What could have got me out of that situation that I got myself into? Anybody? So I need to look at what got me in that situation, wouldn't I? What created that situation? What should I have done instead? And if I could recognize it, then I could take spiritual action to seek power to not get into those situations again. Anybody get into situations that they didn't want to get into, that they got into?
mm-hmm.
Right? So we're doing things that we don't want to do. Anybody in this group? And we're not doing things that we want to do. And we're in conflict with ourselves. Anybody been in conflict with themselves? So that would be along the lines of lack of power. So what's making my decisions for me, or had made my decisions for me, is we see is instinct-based living. So where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? Well, on that inventory process, we got to see everybody we hurt, which is interesting, right? So where were we selfish, inconsiderate, dishonest? That's what it asks us, right? Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Wow, how many people think about situations where they're selfish, inconsiderate, dishonest in their past in regards to relationships? So you see how, for lack of better words, that will associate or trigger something from the past that kind of reminds you of a situation where you're less than desirable in that moment. Then you carried regret or remorse or some ill feeling from that situation. Anybody here?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different. So you see, it's just situation, moments, right? It's not the whole relationship. It's moments that we're looking at to be free of. So then when we get down to it, what's the purpose of it? We got this all done on paper. So it talks about, where do these things come from? So I see it's from my self-esteem. What's across that list? Katie's self-esteem is personal relationship or self-esteem. And then the next one's what? Security.
Yeah, I sent it to you. I texted it to you.
I can't get access to it.
Okay. So you want the first column? Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or you want the instincts?
The instinct. Now
social
we're looking at the third column, right?
Yeah.
Where this stuff comes from.
So it comes from the social instinct, the security instinct, the sex instinct, or the ambitions.
Which is interesting when you look at those columns. So I see a lot of the situations on my inventory process. I used to think before, I had a sex problem, right? But I didn't have a sex problem. What I had was a self-esteem problem or security problem, right? Or ambitions. Right. So a lot of my relationships were based on one of those instincts. Well, why do you like her so much? Because everybody else likes her. If I can get her, right? Or if I can help her. So a lot of my relationships in the past were based on having a reason for being there. But I didn't know that. I'd be the protector. I'd be the looking for the wounded, right? Broken wing syndrome. And I'm not alone in that, right? And so now I know I have a purpose for being there. If I didn't have a purpose for being there, I didn't know I fit in. Well, what are you doing? I'm a protector. I'm a provider. I had a role in that relationship. And I got that from a lot of old ideas growing up. It was like, what's your problem? The fridge is full, right? The fridge is full. I've been working. What are you complaining about? Anybody remember that old school stuff? That or what's your problem? Even as a kid, what's your problem? You got something to eat, right? Yeah, right. That mentality. And so back when I was growing up, what a man was, right? So it worked a lot of ideas that I tried to form relationships on, and society was changing, but I wasn't changing. And so what happens was I was having really shitty relationships based on those old ideas, right? And I was sober a while before I started seeing the purpose of this process in the inventory, because most people miss it. Most people look for the nasty list of things that they've done or engaged in to find relief from the guilt and shame. Anybody? You make a list of all those nasty things, right? And then you feel even worse writing it down. Then you go do a fifth step, you create relief, but you haven't changed it. Nothing's changed. Right? And so at 16 years sober, I seen this I actually looked at this thing because I said, there's got to be something wrong, because I kept on having the same they were getting better, but they were still worse. Anybody been in those relationships? Still, they were all doomed to failure. They all ended kind of in the same way. Regret, and what am I doing here? And I can't believe I'm here. How did I get attracted to this person? How did I get in a relationship with this person? Because the way it ended, obviously there wasn't a relationship there in the first place. Anybody in those relationships that way? So it's kind of like, why is that? So then I see my instincts are all out of whack. And so what I was attracting, right? Like that old saying, anybody been around up? There's 1,000 people here. You go, excuse me. You pass 100 people that are probably, healthy and well-rounded, to find the one with the red light spinning on their head.
Mine.
Mine, that one's mine. And then we call it God. Anybody ever been in those relations? Oh, I thank God for you every day. And then it's like, oh, thank you, God. And then it's, God, can you please take this back? Sometimes the things we pray for, it takes twice as many prayers to get rid of.
Ain't that the truth?
So we get it all down on paper. And so what is it? In this way, we try to what? Go ahead.
In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life.
So we're trying to say, I look at the past to see what's not working for me. That how do I want my future to look like? I'm developing a sane idea for who? For myself, based on who? What I want. Well, I want my life to, not what I was taught or what other people think or what. I check my own consciousness, my own heart, and say, this is what I think I'd like my life to look like. This is what I want relationships to be like. Right? Go ahead.
We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not?
Okay, so this is the second list. There's 2 lists. I think so. You can do whatever you want, but I found this really helpful. So the first list, right, has to do with all the things that cause me guilt, shame, and remorse. Anybody have those things? See, based on selfishness, inconsideration, dishonesty, and fear, I created these things in the moment with these people. We all been there, right? Men and women, right? We see that we're all like that, right? Like I've placed the barter system. We've all done it, right? Anybody, men, women, we all do it. Barter, right? Negotiate, barter, and sell ourselves, whatever, right? And then, so it was kind of like those selfish acts I seen with. Now this one is each relationship I've been in. Was it selfish or not? So I look back over my relationships that I've been in with all these people, right? And ask, was that selfish or not? So a lot of them were not, because we both agreed to be in the relationship. We both had a mutual understanding of what the relationship was about. And so that was no. That relationship was no. Now, was some of the things in that relationship selfish, dishonest? Yes, that's in the first list. The second list, I may have had this one person say Kim, hypothetically, there may be 20, 30 different things on the first list, right? But on the second list, it was based on mutual agreement. Then the more sober I got, even that one was based on selfishness. But we both agreed to it. We're both being selfish. It kind of sound weird, but it was a whacked relationship. And then I went through other ones and say Tara. It was no, we both agreed. It didn't last long, but we both agreed and we went separate ways. And then say there was Brenda. I was totally selfish because she was going to help me pay the rent. Even though we stayed together, and I got right. And the other one, so you do your own list, right? You kind of go back. So I subjected each relationship to the test. You see how there's 2 lists now? How many people see that?
Yep.
And you see the importance of that, right? Because now I'm trying to get a sane and sound idea. Okay, go ahead.
Was it selfish or not? We ask God to mold our ideals and help us live up to them.
Okay, so here we go again. The first one says, in this way, we try to get a shape of sane and sound idea. Well, some of my conduct was causing me, even how do you say, even though it was fun, it caused me guilt and remorse. Anybody?
Usually the funnest stuff does.
Yeah. So thank you, Katie. That was very helpful. So what happens is so in a lot of cases, what seems like a good idea the night before, in the morning is a bad idea. Is that kind of everybody okay with that terminology? Where you're driven by your instincts, and in the moment, the heat of the moment sounds like a great idea, and then the next day it's not a good idea. Am I alone in that? Everybody? No? Okay, people are like, yeah, you're one sick puppy. So, but it's difficult to talk about this stuff, right? Because it's like, I don't want to impose any of my ideas. This is your inventory, right? And I had to go through this for my inventory. What my inventory looked like when I was newly sober, and when I actually did this, what it was asked, I was 16 years sober, 15 years sober, 16, before I actually seen what he was saying, the shape of sound idea. So meaning, when I looked at some of the stuff that I got pleasure from that caused me guilt, shame, and remorse, and how it hurt other people, I kind of, ooh, yeah, geez, I don't want to do that anymore, right? So that was one of a sound idea, right? In this way, we try to shape a sound idea for our future. This is what I want my life to look like. Then over here, it talks about whatever our ideas turn out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. Well, isn't that interesting? So that means I'm formulating what I want my relationships to look like. And it could be wherever you're at in your life, right? And if you're in a relationship, what do I want that relationship to look like? So In early sobriety, right? Yeah, I wanted the picket fence. Then I realized I didn't want that at all. Like I was a little confused. I wanted to just raise my daughters and stay single and not lie about it. So when I met people, it was like, hey, you know what? I'm just raising my kids. I don't want you to meet my kids, but I'd like some companionship and hang out and all that other stuff, right? And be honest about that. And there was other people who were like that. So I'm not lying. That's what I wanted. I didn't want that relationship, right? And then when I seen other people wanting that, I would end it because it'd be dishonest for me to stay in it.
Mhm.
Then as time went on, I realized my kids got older. I said, well, I want something to look different for me. But I didn't want my old relationships anymore because they were too painful. So a sane and sound idea. So go ahead. It's kind of interesting where we'll go with this. And I'll share a story. Go ahead.
Okay. Back to where we were. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow towards it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in doing.
Underline that. I hear people say, no, you got to save yourself. You got to go tell the other partner. You got to go rat the person out. You got to do this. You got to. That's ludicrous. People get killed in this area. This is the worst area there is. There's more people, men and women, sitting doing life in penitentiary based on this instinct than anything else.
Yeah.
Right? When we're talking, well, and nobody in this group, jealousy, anger, rage. Like anybody ever experienced that dark rage? All of a sudden, yeah. Okay, so here, and you notice who
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Allegedly.
I plead the fifth. Is there any witnesses? Then no, I didn't do it.
Or
If I'm the only witness, the answer is still no. So here, do you notice what's involved all the way through this? Anybody notice what's the key element in conversation here? Is prayer and God. It's assuming that if you follow directions, that you formulated this relationship. Now you're learning how to meditate. You know what your conscious is saying. You know the difference between your thinking and your consciousness. Anybody see the difference? Because your brain could talk shit, but your consciousness could say to keep you on the straight and narrow. So you see there's a lot of different conversations that you're not your thinking, that when you actually meditate, you could feel this inner voice or this inner direction come from within. You understand it for yourself. Now, it even doesn't sound nuts when other people talk about it because you've experienced it. Well, when I did this list, my conscious told me about all this stuff that I'm still struggling with. When it talked about what my future relationships would look like, yeah, this is what I would like. This is what I think about when I think about relationships. I'd like to have this, right? So we make that list, what I would like my relationship to look like. Anybody?
Mhm.
So now you're formulating your own idea for what you want your future relationships to look like. And if you're in a relationship, you both can do that. So Yvonne and I, my wife and I, we do that. Well, we're here in our relationship. We sit, we have a business meeting. May sound kind of weird. What do we want our life and relationship to look like going forward? What can we improve on? What can we do differently? And it's it's developed. I mean, it's developed from when we first met to where we are now. But how we met is along this idea. Because who am I bringing into this now?
God.
I'm bringing God into it, right? So before, my life looked like a fast food restaurant, right? You can't establish a healthy, good relationship. You can't find a 4-star dining in a fast food restaurant, right? It's like, some of you picking up what I'm putting down. Like, it's not, if you're doing drive-through relationships, you don't expect 4-star dining.
Are we still talking about page 69?
Yes, yes, we are. Right, the right idea for the future, for for each person. So I had to kind of establish, well, if this is what I want my relationships to look like, I made a list of what I wanted it to look like in regards to my partner. Right? And how did I get that list? Well, for me, at 16 years sober, I took the best quality of all the relationships I had. I thought like the intimacy and like that I had with empathy that I had for my kids, I would like to feel that for a partner, right? And dedication, all that, the dedication I had for my kids and their well-being, I wanted that in my relationship, right? The honesty I had with my mom, I wanted that with other people. The honesty what I had, right? The support I had from my friends, I wanted that in a relationship. Like I wanted all these things, that the best qualities of all the relationships I had, I formulated in here for my partner, right? For my future. And then guess what I did once I had all this stuff through meditation and wherever you're at. If it's be single, it's to be honest about being single. If it's not being in a relationship, you still want to have fun. Is if whatever you're into, as long as you're honest about it, that's what it's saying. First, you need to be honest with you. Then you need to be honest with your partner or potential partner, or still drive through, right? Whatever you're into, you need to be honest with the person that you're involved in, not lying what your motive is. And you'll find people who think and believe the same way you do.
Mhm.
So when I did this, whatever our ideals turn out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm. So also that amends is within inside of ourselves, to amend, to make right in how I think and my approach and all that other stuff, right? So when I did this thing, it may kind of sound weird, but I put my name at the top of the list. What does that mean? First, it started off with my partner, then I rubbed out partner, and I put Tony needs to be all these things to attract the person I'm looking for. I need to be all these things. If I can't be all these things, then don't expect it in another person.
Mhm.
Right? I sponsor a lot of people over the years. And a lot of people lie to themselves and they lie to other people and they wonder, there's a thing that'll happen that they talk about in the back of this, and we'll kind of go through it. Then I'll share my experience with this a bit. Go ahead.
In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter.
So in meditation, we treat this as we would any other problem. Underline that. Meditation. What step is meditation? We'll find in step 11. This is the basis for step 11. Most people who did this inventory process didn't take a year to do it. Right? I'm doing one step a year. Well, that explains what an asshole you are. And if you can still stay sober, then this doesn't apply to you, because there's an earnestness why we got to do this for people like us, right?
Yeah.
Right? We look past each other's flaws and we look at the greater picture here, right? There's something bigger happening here than us. Okay, go ahead. In meditation, we ask who? God, what we should do about each specific matter.
The right answer will come if we want it.
Right? Want it?
Yep.
And how many people don't like that right answer? Come on. Huh? A show of hands, how many people have been there? I didn't like that answer. You felt it. It says, we better pray again. God, obviously you didn't hear me the first time. You're not paying attention. And then a couple sooner or later, that what you felt 6 months ago, a year ago, you're faced with again. Okay. Anybody? I'm convinced. Okay.
I'm convinced.
That's right.
God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge.
And then we know within our heart, right? Don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice.
We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. Mind your own business. Right? Like, you know, all these people have gone and get involved in new people in their relationship. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, the only time unless if there's a problem, then that's what the police are there for. Most people are happy when they're getting their own way. And when they don't get their own way, all of a sudden there's a problem. Oh, she did this or he did that. Really, and you're surprised. I'm gonna just leave that alone. Okay, go ahead.
Moving on. We suppose,
be different. Yeah, I know you.
suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk?
Listen to this now. Suppose we fall short of whose chosen idea?
Ours.
Because remember, these things are the things within inside of you that are causing stumbling blocks, that cause you guilt, shame, and remorse, that cause you to be blocked off from what? When harboring such feelings. Anybody been there?
Yeah.
So what did they talk about on page, when they talked about here, right? On page 66. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. What feelings? Well, whatever these things that cause these things within inside of us. So we looked at the common manifestations: resentment, fear, and conduct, or relationships. But it's our conduct that causes us our problems, not the relationships. Unless you're in a relationship with somebody you shouldn't be in a relationship with. Nobody in this group. Sorry. I just think, anyways, I'm leaving all that alone.
All right. Does this mean we're going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half truth. It depends on us and our motives.
So get that. Depends on us and our motives, right? And they're going to give us the recipe why most people get loaded again in sobriety. And a lot of it has to do around relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because their dependence and their reliance shifts without realizing it. They become instinct-based. When you become instinct-based, you become, right? Anybody? And then who becomes your primary focus? The other person. Where's God in that? God isn't there anymore. And I'm in my sobriety, the times that I've gotten closest to where the insanity has returned has been around relationships. You know, it was where they talk about at the end of page 43, where at certain times, neither us or any other human being can provide such a defense. That defense must come from a higher power. That means sooner or later, there's going to be something in your life that's going to create such a block or shut you off that the insanity will return, and something will intervene to block you from the carrying out of that. And you'll snap out of it and you realize that, like Bill with the nickel at the telephone. Mm-hmm. Right? Remember, how many people remember that story? Bill was standing there, you hear the glass, he's having a moment, and he had a shiver. Something came over him, and he went to the pay phone, and he started, and that's where he got a hold of Dr. Bob. Mm-hmm. Interesting, right? A moment. And what we do with that moment is entirely up to us. How many people been sober before and got loaded and realized there was a moment? There was a moment. God will say, hey, which way you going? And most of us will go, I'm going this way. Okay, you have free will. You can do whatever you like. But I'm trying to save you from yourself here. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I don't need saving. Okay. I'll be right here when you get back. Thank you. I'll take it from here. Okay. Come on, we all been there. Yes, no? Yep. Some people are there right now. They don't find that funny at all. We all been through it. It's okay. Yeah. You're not alone. Okay, go ahead.
If we are sorry for what we have done and believe, or sorry, if we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things.
So that reconfirms what they talked about on page 69, right? We've reviewed our conduct or the past, we're selfish, and we see that this is causing us problems. We get a better idea or reconfirm the idea that we were ignoring, right? And we pray for the strength not to be driven by our instincts. So I'm not doing things that I don't want to do, and I can start moving toward the things that I want to do. What's the difference is the prayer where I'm connected with God. If I'm not connected, then I'm in conversation with myself and still being driven by my instincts.
Yep.
Conflict with me. Anybody been there? So that means, so you notice it didn't say I go work on my behaviors here. That's what's getting me in trouble, is working on my behaviors. Oh, some of my old behaviors came back. They're not old if they're still there. They're your go-to based on self.
Yeah.
That's why we do this inventory. How do I act on an instinct-based living? Where's my solutions in these areas? It's funny how this area also can create a sense of ease and comfort followed by a lot of pain. Anybody? The
Yep.
endorphins, the thing, anybody? Yeah. The honeymoon stage, one situation after another. I'm not feeling it anymore. Well, you're not supposed to. Relationships take work. Well, I don't like that work. I'm going to go look for another exciting thing. And then we're wondering why we're alone. There's a lot of people in AA who are alone. Why? Because they haven't done this inventory process.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I'm not trying to be a whatever. I'm just saying, isn't that the truth, though? If you don't know how to form a true partnership with another human being, then we're going to end up in the same situation over and over and over again. Then we get discouraged, and then we talk ourselves out of things. How many people talk themselves out of stuff here based on fear? Or destroy things based on fear? Or they call it sabotage. But it really is undealt with emotional baggage that you're carrying forward. So you're not dealing with the relationship, you're dealing with the past in the present, but you don't know that. How many people have been there?
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting how this thing, so if I was free of all that stuff and I was just dealing with today's stuff in a relationship, how would the relationship look? Pretty good, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
So it isn't interesting, same like resentment. If I wasn't carrying yesterday resentment, I was living in today, how would my life look? A lot better. If I wasn't being driven by fear, and I was living in today, how would it be looking? A lot better. So we see that this thing is being free of the past, of the things that anchor me in the past, which we will look at again later in 6 and 7 and 11, right? Because some of this stuff will take a while, right, to bring in alignment with our chosen idea, right? Okay, go ahead.
If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink.
So this is my thing. I believe this. I've dealt with thousands of people, and even in my own sobriety, if our conduct continues to hurt other people, if we're all God's children and we're hurting other people,
Mhm.
right, we're sure to drink. So in order in order to do what a lot of people do, they have to be shut off from themselves in order to do it, men and women.
Yeah.
Right? And then what happens when you're shut off from yourself and you're instinct based, you end up getting loaded again. It's just a matter of time. Right? The exploitation of people, places, and things is just a matter of time. It's one of those things. So a lot of people I deal with is kind of saying, yeah, I know that's how you used to be. But if you continue to go to that country and do those things, you're in trouble. If or you continue to act outside your marriage, you're going to be in trouble. If you continue to be dishonest in these areas, right? Men and women, nobody's exempt from this, right? How we got to keep ourselves in check. We really do, because it's easy to get way off track as part Neanderthals or whatever, trying to have, right? Animals trying to have a spiritual experience. We're left to our own devices. We're pretty wow. The human race, right? The more we get left unsupervised, the more we see the need for God. Anybody?
Yeah.
5 minutes alone in your brain ought to be enough to tell you, hey, where's God? Okay, so go ahead.
We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation.
So they bring it back again. They bring it right around, right? So questionable situation means I could be having problems in my own relationship that I'm creating within my own thinking. I don't need to involve another human being to have problems in my relationship. Anybody? I can start creating problems just in the way I think. And it's not too long before I start making that reality that making that thing in my brain a reality. I create it. Anybody?
Yep.
So to make right with it, to correct these things within inside of us, I have to be like, it's okay, go ahead. I'll go back to this in a second. Go ahead.
Okay. For guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others.
You think there'd be more people in service work? Sorry, that didn't sound right. Go ahead.
We think of their needs and we work for them.
I totally misunderstood this part of the book. That's where sponsorship comes in handy.
This takes us out of ourselves and it quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache.
Wow, how many people need that explained?
Nope.
Okay, so here we go. So you got this all down on paper, and we're depending where you're at and your own belief system and your own inventory, like I said. So this is interesting. So this carries into 11 and also step 6. We'll look at later, but it's interesting to look at the parts now where they talk about the right idea. So through my sobriety, I went through different phases of my life and where I was at, my belief system and all that other stuff, and been married a couple times and just whatever, it just didn't work. Right. And so I stayed single for a long period of time and I didn't want to get back in a relationship. And then it was causing me a lot of pain, what I was getting into. Like, I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I stayed a single parent for a long period of time. But then there was a desire for a relationship. So when I seen that in the book, one day I said, holy smokes, I never did this inventory process. Well, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, I've done an inventory process. So then can I see your sound and sane idea for the future? Can I see what your relationship inventory looks like, your ideas for the future looks like? They go, what do you mean? I said, well, that's part of the inventory process. Can I see your sane and sound idea for your future conduct and what your relationships are going to look like? They look at me like I'm nuts. So I said, so I guess we're missing a part of the inventory process, aren't we? See, that's why I've done it, other people's ideas on how, I'm choosing my words here, other people's idea on how to do this, I never seen that. Like the Joe and Charlie don't talk about that. They don't get in depth the way the book does. They're a generic approach to this. A lot of people have a generic approach where they don't offend, don't get into, and it's kind of just everybody kind of appeases everybody. But if you get into the book here, it's a little difficult in some of the questions they're asking here, right? Because who are they asking it to? The reader. And a reader has to be honest with themselves. right? And a lot of this stuff we're not really fond at looking at, but to keep it would mean our own demise. Something needs to shift for a lot of us, right? That means, so at different stages of my recovery, so at 15 years sober, I made this list. I seen the things that were causing me problems. That was easy to do, that I didn't want to do. So, okay, I stopped going to strip clubs in early sobriety, stopped watching porn, stopped watching like all that stuff because I didn't like, it was just for me, right? My beliefs. So I stopped doing that because of where I was raised and how I was raised. It warped my sense of whatever, like without getting into my story. I come from like the streets of Toronto, right? So all those people, I never seen the life behind it. So when I got more honest about this stuff, it wasn't for me. And so I prayed for the right idea, and it was okay. I stayed away from those places. Things were great. But then when it came to the relationship part, I kept on ending up in the same relationship all the time, meaning different people, but the same. I didn't know how to have a relationship. So when I got this right idea, is kind of like I just stayed out of it because I wanted a 4-star experience instead of a fast food experience. Right. And so that imperious urge, when it came over next phone, I just asked God for the strength. I'd go find somebody to work with. I'd go do more service work, do 2 big book studies a week. Then I was doing 3. Like I got busy in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? I got busy. So so as I went along, it was kind of like one day. So I was doing this prayer for like 3 months of the right idea. So I was kind of, it was really interesting that for the first time in my sobriety, I was bringing God into the idea of relationships. For the first time, I was bringing God into this area. I brought God into the resentments. I brought God into the fears. I brought God into the conduct that I didn't want to get into. Anybody? But I never brought God into the idea of formulating a direction from him and trusting and relying on him to formulate the relationship or to find a relationship I was looking for. So I tried that recipe. I said, okay, God, right? Like this is my idea, help me live up to it. So that means when the phone rang or people introduced themselves, I would say, no, based on my inventory, I know when to yield would mean heartache. I know what this would get, even though there would be short-term gains, I know the long-term gain wouldn't work for me because I'm based on how it caused me guilt, shame, and remorse in the past. So I was praying for direction not to go there anymore. So I was abstaining for a long period of time. I think I ended up staying out of a relationship almost a year at that time in sobriety. I just didn't get nothing because like God's idea for me, right? Like it wasn't engaging in any kind, no fast food whatsoever. Right. It was just like, when the family's cooking a big turkey dinner, you don't stop off at the McDonald's before you go home for the turkey dinner. You stay hungry all day. Does that kind of make sense? You stay hungry. I'm hungry, right? I haven't eaten in a while. I'm hungry, right? But I don't want to yield. I don't want to go to McDonald's because I know there's a big meal being prepared for me with all the fixings, right? And the table set. And I know it's good because who's cooking? God's cooking, right? Mm-hmm. So I know. I said, well, it's going to be good. So one day, I'm praying and I'm getting weak, right? Like I'm just kind of like McDonald's looking good, but I know there's a meal happening because I see the menu and like I say, okay, God, I need some help with this. And the phone rang and it was an ex. And I said, this must be God's will for me. Because I've been praying. Right? And then I felt this thing come over me. It was like a speed wall. When you get so hungry, you kind of can't think straight. It I kind of went, where are you? Shook me up a bit. Like, okay. And I said, oh, what am I going to do? Something said, go to White Rock, which is an hour drive from where I was on the bike. Just go. You haven't been there in a year. Go to that noon meeting at 5:00 or whatever. So I hopped on my bike. I went there. I ran into a friend. He says, come for dinner. We went for dinner. I was telling him what was going on in my life and what was happening. And I nearly went back to an ex and I didn't. And I talked about that stuff, where my right idea, I reconfirmed by me voicing it to another AA member, what I was trying to do, he says, well, come on, let's go to this meeting over here. I said, I've never been to this meeting over. He says, it's the Punjabi meeting. I said, I don't speak Punjabi. He says, no, they do it in English too. I said, but I want to go to North Vancouver because that's where all the single women go. He says, no, I'll come over to this meeting. I said, man, I don't want to go to that meeting. I said, okay, God, this is you. So I get on my bike. I go to meet him. He says, I'll meet you at 152nd. There's a Starbucks there. I didn't know where it was. I said, okay, I'll meet you there. So I'm going through the valley and I'm having a heart-to-heart with God. What it asked me to do. Right? I'm having a heart-to-heart with God. And I said, God, you seen what I can do. I said, you know what I mean? If this is your will for me, is these relationships, can you make the next one a lot less painful? Because I can't take it anymore. I'm crying on my Harley, man. I got snot running out of my nose. And I'm driving, and it's windy. I don't know. It's not a good look, right? It's like in my eyes. And it's a beautiful starlit night. And I looked up and I said, I seen what I could do. Let's see what you can do. The first time I ever heard that said that in this area. Let's see what you can do. Right, I pulled into the gas station. We're standing. He's got a hot rod car, and I got my bike there. This lady comes. She comes, parks her car just outside of Starbucks. Gets out of the car, and she's glowing. I just looked at her and just how amazing this woman looked. She walked by, and I said, "Hey, what's the matter? You don't say hello anymore." I acted like I knew her, and she walked in to the it was a Saturday night. She walked in and returned some videos. She came walking. I said, hey, how you doing? She goes, oh, she wanted to see if I was a player. And I'm getting a little choked up. She wanted to see if I was a player. And she says, oh, I just returned some videos. I got somebody at home. I said, then have a good night. I backed off from the, I said, have a good night. I said, you must be a lucky guy. Right? She says, no, it's my mom. She goes, no, it's my mom. She's not feeling well. I'm hanging out with her watching some videos. I said, in that case, here's my card. Right? And I gave her a coffee card. I said, redeemable at any Starbucks in the Lower Mainland in my presence for a coffee. Right? It took her a week to call. Not an AA relationship. We knew each other's name then and had the U-Haul the next day. It was foreign to me. Right? And so what started happening without my realizing it is God says, okay, here, I got one of my children. Let's see how you treat her. Right? Let's see how you do with this. And it started a relationship that was, it took a lot of work. Like she had a lot of patience and love with this one. I still got the book here. Some people laugh. She sat down in this relationship. She says, you don't know how to have a relationship very well, do you? I said, what makes you say that? She says, your coping mechanisms. She goes, here, I wrote this. She had a little binder. She has a type A personality. She has her master's in English, right? So she sat down with me. She says, let's see if you could work through some of the stuff. She had a binder with 17 points on it from the internet, this on all these different. I looked at her, I said, what planet are you from? Right? I got up and left. She goes, see, that's what I'm talking about, stuff like this. I'm happy to report we've taken care of 16 items of those 17. We're married, right? And how did that happen? Doing this recipe, sticking to the course, and being the thing that I wanted the most in another human being, and asking God for the strength and bringing God into it, brought me somebody that's beyond anything I could ever imagine. I've never experienced nothing like this. And to give you a rough idea, I've never, without knowing, ever felt empathy for another human being. I was diagnosed with what they call a sociopath tendencies. Right, where you just don't feel nothing for another. I've had people looking at me crying, and I'd be able to mimic crying. I'm probably the only one here, right? Anybody able to mimic on the cue, mimic crying? Right? I'd watch other people to see how they act for me to act. Right? And so one day so when my daughters were born, I started feeling this thing happening inside of me, which was weird. But when it happened with my wife, it was the first time I was going to leave this situation. This is why when I talk about this inventory, I'll be two more minutes. See, we talk ourselves out of shit, right? Because see, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. I started thinking unsupervised, uncounseled, left to my own devices. So in prayer, I said, God, something said, phone Milton. So I phoned Milton. He didn't answer the first time, busy. I said, oh, good. And something said again, phone him again. I never phoned Milton. The guy's sober forever. It was sober forever back then. It was a long-term relationship. He was one of those old. I never phone him. So I phone Milton. He answers the phone. I'm talking to him. He goes, let me get this straight. He says, you met a woman that knows all about you. And she still wants to be with you. She knows all about you and she still wants to be with you and she loves you. And you're going to go end it? I said, yeah. He says, you're a loser. I said, what did you say to me? I said, what the fuck did you say? That's actually what I said. I said, what, you know who you're talking to? He says, you deaf too? Old timers. I don't like them too much, right? He goes, you deaf too? And he hears, he says, listen to this. He was lying in bed because he's getting older. He put the phone in the air and he says, can you hear that? He says, yeah. I said, I could hear your kids, your wife, everybody. Says, why would you rob yourself of that? I started crying. It opened something inside of me, and I went to meet my wife. Well, then my girlfriend, and I was gonna. She thought I was gonna end it because that's what I was sounding. We're standing in the lineup, and her eyes started watering. Right, and it was like a knife went right through my heart. It was the first time I ever felt that in my life for another human being, and I realized at that moment on, I never wanted her or anybody else associated with me to ever feel anything that I've caused. Right? What a gift. So sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. It took 16 years before somebody penetrated my heart based on where I come from to a level that it pierced it to a place that it opened it up to something beyond anything I could ever imagine, that I'd robbed myself for years. But I wish for you what you look for. Mostly, I wish for you the desires of your heart. And you could find whatever you're looking for through the recipe in here. Bring God into it and be amazed. Not somewhat thrilled, be amazed before you're halfway through. And next week, we'll finish this process. Love you guys. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. And let's continue on. Rob?